Hi, it's Dre Griggs, and I want to welcome you to day 2 of the Wealthy Retirement Challenge. If you enjoyed yesterday, I did have a great time speaking with you guys about creating unlimited wealth and how you go about doing that, even if you don't come from money. And if you remember yesterday, we talked about the importance of wisdom, teaching it to our children, learning it for ourselves, the strategies and the results that we ultimately created for ourselves to make sure that we don't raise spoiled kids that ultimately end up losing the wealth that we work so hard to create. Now, the difference that you will notice is ours is centered around your ability to retire. And I didn't really go into what retirement is and the definition of retirement. Like we all know retirement just means I get to stop working. But we want to know why that's so important. And I'm telling you today, the reason retirement is so important, you may or may not know the word retire. It's actually a French root word. So retire means to withdraw. So normally we're talking about in military strategies, but in this aspect, we're talking about withdrawing from the rat race. What is the rat race? That is us trading our time for money. Our ability to withdraw from that part of the game is going to be the linchpin that decides whether or not we actually create generational wealth and we can teach it to our children. If we only leave a retirement that is focused on leaving life insurance for our kids, that's great, where our kids are going to have the money. We give them a big bag of fish, but did they learn how to fish? And the answer will be no, because we never figured out how to fish. And that's why you won't really hear me. And I'll talk about the importance of insurance products because they are an important part of building a financial fortress around your family and ensuring that you protect one of your most valuable assets, which is your ability to earn a future income. But at the same time, I do not say, let's get life insurance so that we can create generational wealth. Because as you know from yesterday, we talked about it. The thing about generational wealth, just getting a bag of money, we know that people who win the lottery, they go broke within a few years. We know professional athletes, they go broke within a few years. We know people that receive an inheritance, that they go broke within a few years. That if you never teach your children how to fish, there's not an amount of fish that you can leave them that will ensure that they'll be able to eat the rest of their life, and that their children will be able to eat the rest of their life, and that their children's will be able to eat for the rest of their life. But if you are able to figure out how to not have to trade your time for money, where you have money that you are making, whether you are awake or asleep. And I joke with my wife, the goal that I have around here is to make more money in my sleep than my wife can spend awake. And if you talk to her, she will tell you that she is up for the task. But that is the way I focus and the way that I generate retirement plans for my clients. It's this ability to make money whether we're working or not. And we're going to talk about some of these false beliefs because I've talked to a lot of people, and it's very important that we create the mindset and the person who is going to be able to accomplish this goal. It's not as much about me giving you the knowledge. You're going to have the knowledge. You can Google any of this stuff. But it's about you having the belief and the mindset that will make you a person who is going to go about their business the right way. And so today we're going to talk about your retirement readiness and the importance of that. At the end of this video, I will log us into Wisdomites and we'll create a retirement plan that answers all of those important questions in probably less than 15 minutes. Right? It's normally around like 10 minutes-ish, and I'm going to use all of the national average numbers to create that plan. Now, you may be wondering, why we're not live streaming with the same equipment that we used yesterday. It was because the video was very blurry. And so we're going to try something different today because I just didn't like the quality of the video, and that happens whether I was streaming. If you guys have any recommendations, feel free to leave it in the chat, but let's go ahead and get started today. So I enjoy talking about retirement planning, and we are going to knock that out. Okay. All right, so today I will show you how to effortlessly take control of your finances, design your perfect retirement plan, and track your success in less than 15 minutes. How is that for a promise? So we will go over that, and I have a question for you. So there's a difference between having wisdom and having wisdom that actually creates success. And what do you think that difference is? And I'll give you a couple of examples. So we all know the story of Solomon. His wisdom created a significant amount of wealth. Gold, more gold than the eyes can see, where everybody's like, dang, where he was considered by many the richest person that had ever lived then, and some will say he may still be the richest person who had ever lived, even to this day. But it doesn't mean that everyone who has wisdom is also wealthy. And you'll find that Socrates, for example, he was one that didn't have a whole lot of money. So wisdom doesn't automatically mean that you have wealth, even though we may have some wisdom. And it doesn't always work out that way, right? Like if you and I were to talk about what we need to do, you and I would say, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to spend less than I make, and I need to invest some of my money, and I need to replace my income with money that's generated through other investments that is not tied to my time in any way. But how do we go about doing that? And so we'll answer that question today. And what we'll say is it is not the type of wisdom that is used. So some people will say, well, there's godly wisdom, there's physical wisdom, there's this ability to create certain skills and strategies and different things. It's not about that. That's not what we're going to talk about. It's not how you designed your framework. So yesterday, as you were designing your happiness framework and we started down this path, you probably wrote down a few things that were very important to you to make sure that you got the most out of life. And we'll talk about that a lot more in day 5 when we talk about building a family dynasty. But we did talk a little bit about the importance of just loving what you do. And when the Bible talks about love, it's amazing how little we actually talk about it when, we're in like church and stuff, but how important it is. And if someone who has a master's in biblical studies, who was reading in the Greek and the Arabic and original translations, I actually came back where I was less religious and more spiritual. And what I mean is I was naturally gravitating towards the literature in the scripture that shows you how to live your best life today here on earth, where you don't hear me talk as much about like heaven and hell, but you hear me talk a lot about the strategies of how to build a solid foundation, relationships, mindsets, how to get over fear, have courage, and how to live your absolute best life, because that is throughout the Bible. And so I talk about love a lot because it's going to be very important. And when we say love is the bond that never fails, the way that I'm reading that, and you can let me know in the chat if you agree or disagree, you got the same idea. It's because if I hate you, sure, I can be motivated to do something for a few months. Heck, I can be motivated to do something for a few years, but probably a few decades, right? No matter how much you hate someone, it's very difficult. But if you've ever had a friend, has anyone had a friend that you just hadn't talked to in a while, and they could call you today and say, I really need your help. And you would say, all right, I'm going to help you, because you have love for that person. And it doesn't really matter how long you go without talking to them. There was something that you all did together, experienced together, to where it impacted you in such a great way. And so that's what we'll talk about. And we'll talk about a lot more when you design your family. So it's not the framework, or it's not even the goals that we set, right? The goals weren't realistic. And that's what messed us up. I was trying to get too much. I wanted to buy an island or my own private jet or something like that. It's not the goals. It's not the goals either. So you don't have to worry about that. It is your ability to prepare yourself for the future challenges and opportunities. Because you and I, when we put a plan together, everything isn't always going to be sunshine and Skittles. There's going to be days, there's going to be years where things don't go exactly as we had hoped. But are we prepared for those days? Do we have a plan in place to protect us, to future-proof our dreams and our goals and our desires? And you will find that most people don't have that. And I'm going to be guilty number one. And I will share with you more stories of all the wisdom that I've gathered because of all the mistakes that I've made. If you can think of a mistake, I probably made it. Now, at some point I got wiser and I was able to learn from other people's mistakes, which is why I read so much. But early on, I was trying to figure things out, right? I was saying, well, I'm not really happy and I want to be able to do these certain things. So then I was like, all right, I'll quit my job and I'll figure it out. And you know that didn't work out very well for me. But ultimately it did work out. But if I can go back, what I've done differently, maybe. I've seen enough time travel movies where if you go back in time, it seems like you mess everything up. So maybe not. But I do remember when I quit my job, I went and I got all these programs and I started taking pictures, setting up a set. I started making videos. I started making offers, and I was making it to any and everybody. But it was really hard for me. Right? I wasn't making any money because I had the awareness of going to school, getting a good job, and working way up. Right? I've been promoted a few times. I had switched jobs a few times. I gotten raises. I worked my way out of the recession that I graduated in. And then I worked myself into a really, great wage. And I was had skills that allowed me to move up very quickly. Where I remember when they first gave me the position to manage the pricing team at this $2 million company, they told me that they had been looking for years, or maybe 1 year, right? I don't want to exaggerate it, but at least for months and possibly a year. And the amount that I had asked for, they actually offered me more than that, because that was how bad they really wanted someone with my exact skill set. So I had all of this understanding and wisdom in this aspect of my life where everything just came very easy. But when I started the business, things were really hard, and I was struggling. But I did not have any sort of a preparation or plan in place. So one of those things I did, and you'll see the picture with me on the left, which is kind of crazy, and my wife still makes fun of me to this day, but I had quit my job, and then my father-in-law, who's Nigerian American, and he was like, I'm going back to Nigeria. I got to visit some family, and we're going to go to a wedding. He's like, Dre, would you like to come? And I remember thinking, well, I don't have a job, but I have some money because I cashed out my 401k to start this business. And I was like, well, I'm sure I'll figure it out. Everything I've done to this point has been a success. So I'm sure I'm going to figure this business thing out. I'm going to make lots of money. It's okay. Right? This is probably a great sign that I need to go to Nigeria, and it's going to be a great experience. And so I went, and then I came back, and maybe 3 weeks later, right? So I was there for about 3 weeks, went to the wedding, went to Lagos, went to a bunch of different cities in the Delta province. It was an amazing trip. It was absolutely gorgeous. And then I was kind of sick. I was laying in the bed, and my wife would check on me, and then I'd be like, I'm okay. You know, maybe I'm jet lag. Like, I don't know. I'm just going to sleep it off. She was like, okay. And then I woke up the next day, and I was still sick. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm dehydrated. I probably just slept a lot the first day. I didn't really drink anything or eat anything. So let me hydrate better today, and then I'll see how tomorrow is. And then I woke up the third day, and I still wasn't feeling well. And my wife said that I was looking kind of pale. And so she came to the room, and she said, you know what, Dre? If you don't get out of this bed and let me take you to the hospital so they can check on you, I'm going to drag you out of this bed, kick you down the stairs, and do it myself. And I looked at her, and husbands, you know, right, when your wife is like dead serious. And wives, you probably made the face, and you know when you're dead serious. And my wife was dead serious. And I was like, okay, all right. Well, I don't want to be kicked and dragged. I was like, I'll get up, right? I'm sure they're going to say I have a cold, but okay, like, let's go. So I get up, I put a shirt on, we go sit in the hospital, and they run some tests. And you know what I had? I had malaria. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I had malaria. They're like, look, you have malaria, so you're not allowed to leave the hospital. And I was like, oh my gosh. They said, yeah, you're gonna have to stay here, kind of quarantine, and we're gonna treat you. It's treatable. And it's great that your wife brought you here, because if she didn't, you probably would have died. And I was like, oh my gosh. When you look at death, that's not how it's outlined in the movies. It seems so obvious in the movies. When I look back, it was sort of obvious. I had my Fitbit on, and it was saying that I was burning about 6,000 calories a day, and I was just laying down doing nothing. So my heart rate was about 140 all the time, and I definitely had a temperature, but my body was working really hard to try to overcome these parasites. And if you're not familiar with what malaria is, basically some mosquitoes, when they bite you, they have different diseases. It could be malaria, it could be the Zika virus, it could be encephalitis, it could be like anything. But in Nigeria, they have malaria. And what happens is these parasites sit inside of your liver, and they sit there for about a week. And they grow and they manifest, and eventually they burst out of your liver. And then they travel through your bloodstream into all your vital organs, and they attack it all at once. And so you have all these crazy vital readings, and it just got really bad really quickly. And I was like, oh my God. And the doctor was like, you didn't take a malaria medicine or malaria vaccine? I was like, no, I didn't know to. And I'm sitting there thinking like, you know, my father-in-law, I'm like, you grew up in Nigeria. You didn't know that I was supposed to take this? But he ended up having malaria too. And he said he had malaria before. So I don't know what he was doing. But with that said, I was not prepared to get malaria. And the crazy thing is, because I just quit my job and we didn't have health insurance at this time, I had no way to pay for this 3-day hospital stay. And it was tough because I'm a very healthy person. I rarely get sick at all. I'm the one that takes care of all the kids when they get sick. I take care of my wife because they get her sick. I take care of the dog if he gets sick. I'm the one that doesn't get sick. And so I didn't think it was going to be a big risk for me. I was like, look, I'm never sick. I never need to go to the doctor. I'm always okay. I can go without health insurance while I figure out this business thing. And the reality was I did not have an actual plan. I had a wish. Right? I was hoping that everything would go perfectly, that I would figure this thing out within a few months before the money runs out, and stay healthy, before I need my health insurance, where everything just had to go exactly perfectly fine. And it didn't. Everything did not go perfectly fine. And it was a gamble. But sometimes when we gamble, you don't always win. And that's why it's important that when we are creating our retirement plan, that it's not for best case scenario. So some people will say, Dre, I'm going to work until I die. And so I don't need any money set aside for me to generate an income that doesn't require me to actively work. And I'll often tell them, I'm like, that's a great plan. But what happens if you're like the 70% of Americans who are 65 and older that have a long-term care issue? And they look at me like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, long-term care. It means that you probably will have to take a break from working. Or, and this has happened, what if your spouse is the one that has a long-term care issue and you have to help them? So you can't juggle your work and taking care of them, so you end up having to leave work unexpectedly. I know people that that's happened to as well. And the reality is sure, we can gamble that everything's going to go perfectly, but what if it doesn't? What is plan B? And most of us don't actually have a plan B. And so I tell people, look, don't gamble everything. So the picture on the left, that is a picture from my parents' yard. That is one of their mango trees, and it is absolutely gorgeous. And the picture on the right is what happens if there is a winter. And mango trees, they love the warm climate. They love it to be tropical. And if you get a little cold, you can end up losing the whole tree. But at a minimum, you probably lose a few branches, and you definitely won't have any mangoes for that season. Because what happens is, I don't know if you know, most trees, especially tropical ones, when it gets cold and they're on the verge of dying, they don't do any extracurricular activities, right? They focus on staying alive. And what that means is, I'm not going to exert any energy to make fruit. I'm going to hold all this energy just to stay alive, just to keep my roots from drying up and dying. And you and I, we'd go into survival mode just the exact same. Right? We're not going to do any of the bells and whistles. So you won't have any fruit, and hopefully the tree will live, but sometimes they die. And so it's important that if your plan requires everything to go perfectly, then you don't have a retirement plan. You have a dream. And so I'm going to tell you the 4 steps that you'll need today. And then if you're interested, so I'm going to give you the strategies. I'm going to show you the Wisdomites, and we'll create a retirement plan. I'm going to use all the national averages. And I rarely like to do that, because there was this TED Talk where they talked about if you build something to the average, then it's not for anybody, because nobody's actually going on the average, right? There's numbers on the very high end, there's numbers on the low end. But so I'll use the median to at least help a little bit with that. But at the end of the day, you will have a link, and I'll put it in the description, and you'll be able to click on it. You'll be able to get a 30-day free Wisdomites account, and then you can create your retirement plan, and then you'll be able to see the adjustments. If you question how much you need to retire, or if you're on track, the likelihood of success, all of those questions will be answered inside of it, and I will show that to you. But you do want to be prepared. What do you want to be prepared for? Well, you want to be prepared in case we die too soon. That would be life insurance. If you die too early and the income was going to keep the house, but the house is based on 2 people's income and 1 person passes, then you should have life insurance that at a minimum pays off that mortgage, so you don't have to move. At a maximum, you get, if you wanted to pay for your kids' college and all that stuff, then you can have enough that covers the income for all of the future years. So that, that'd be like, my wife and I, we have $1 million policies, because that's how much money we would be generating, right? So like, that's that idea. Or you could just say, this is how much my debt adds up to. So my house is $300,000, and then my car is like $50,000. So we'll get insurance for $400,000, right? Something like that. So you could do it either way. There's a variety of ways. Normally people will say, look, just times 10 of whatever your annual income is, and that's a great place to start. So that would be what you do with that. Then we talked about, what would I do if I get dementia or Alzheimer's or something happens to me during or before retirement? That might be either you setting the money aside where you self-fund it. And on average, the long-term care is about $36,000 a year currently on the national average. or you can invest in long-term care insurance. So the average person that I end up talking to, they're usually in their 40s. That's around the time when you're kind of serious about retirement planning. We're like, dang, I don't want to work forever. So usually somewhere in the late 30s, early 40s, 50s, usually around there is where people are at. Generally speaking, they would say, look, if you're around 50 years old, then you may want to invest or at least explore your options for long-term care insurance and see if it makes sense for you. It's very difficult to get that, but if you are able to get it, then it could work for you just fine. We already know that if something were to happen of us living too long, then what will we do for that? Because that could happen. People have been progressively living longer than they had been. Now, granted, the past maybe 5 years, we've actually decreased slightly, but we have decreased for the life expectancy. But on average, men will die around 73 and women will die around like 78, right? That's your life expectancy on average. And so what will you do if you live too long? So you put a plan together and it assumes you're going to die around the national average, but here you are at 100 years old because AI has increased the how long you're going to live. So what do you do to make sure that you don't run out of money to live too long? Now, for some, they would say, well, I'm just going to get an annuity because they're going to pay me a monthly income the rest of my life. And you could. Some will say, I'll only live off the interest of my investments or the dividends and stuff like that. And you could. But what are you going to do when that happens? Do you have a plan in place for that? If everything doesn't go exactly as you thought it would. All right, we have homeowners insurance. We have automobile insurance for just in case something happens. But we don't really think about our whole plan. If you're invested heavily and the interest rates go up or down or inflation or deflation, do you have something that is counter to the stock market? So the stock market normally does really well when you're in times of economic growth, but do you have something that is outside of that that performs well during times of economic decline? Now that now that could be investing in certain sectors, but it also could be investing in alternative assets. You can invest in a business that does well during a recession, and we normally would call those like consumer staples, which is just a very fancy way of saying no matter what's going on, I got to buy toilet paper, right? There's certain things that we got to buy no matter what's going on. But on the other end, there's certain things that people buy more of during a recession than they would during an economic boom. And that would be things like alcohol and cigarettes. People end up, I guess, stressing about the recession, so they end up spending more money on things like that. So those purchases actually go up. But at the same time, things like luxuries, traveling, those usually go down. People aren't going to be able to have as many luxury spending as they would during time of economic growth. So do you have a plan that adjusts with that? I mean, there are a variety of things, and I will go over the tactics with you in much more detail. If you aren't already in the challenge, I do encourage you to go to obsidianwisdom.com/retirement challenge, and then you can log in and then come to the private Facebook group, ask your questions, and I'll be able to help you on that. So it really comes down to personal planning. So personal planning, this is the picture of my wife and my oldest. And so this was her, maybe about a 4-year span between them, probably about 3.5 years. And the African proverb says, tomorrow belongs to the people who prepare for it today. And I remember sitting there with her and I was like, look, Autumn, 18-year-old Autumn is going to open some college letters. And she's going to look, and she's not going to be able to impact what those letters say in really any way at all. What those letters say was decided by 15 and 16-year-old Autumn. So is she going to look back and thank her 15 or 16-year-old Autumn, or is she going to look back and be frustrated with 15 or 16-year-old Autumn? Is she going to say, we missed an opportunity, we could have handled our business? Most of us, when we're thinking of retirement, we're thinking not long-term enough to where your retirement Dre is going to look back at younger Dre and be like, we didn't have to spend money on that stuff. We could have taken care of business. We could have set things up where the older Dre could look back and say, thank you, younger Dre. Now we bought all of our time back. Now we have control over our life. But you have to understand, you can't make up for the lost time. We'll go into that a lot tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a great day of the challenge because we're going to go over long-term investing. And that is going to be probably the most important part of the overall retirement challenges, right? Obviously, how do I get my money to work for me so I can start working for it? But you have to keep in mind, there's little that you can do when the day comes. Someone else made that decision. The life that you have today isn't based on any decision that you made today. It's based on the decisions that you made a year ago, or 2 years ago, or 5 years ago. And then the decisions that you make today will determine what your life will be like in 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years from now. So will Dre in 2 years look back and say, I appreciate the work that you did? Or will he look back and say, you know what, Dre, you let me down. You wasted a little bit of time. You made some poor decisions. Tomorrow belongs to those who are prepared for it today. So I'm going to give you the 4 steps. So obviously, number 1 is you got to take inventory. We got to know where we're at to know where we're going. And so you can either do this in your own Excel spreadsheet. You can say, this is how much I spend, this is how much I make. I subtract it. You just make your own balance sheet. You could definitely do that. And then you can essentially make your own cash flow statements where this is where the money goes. And you can put it together. For most of my clients, I will make essentially your business profile where you have your balance sheet, your cash flow statements, and you have your income statements, right? This is where the money is going. This is what we're doing. And I'll show you how to do that pretty quickly using the Wisdometrics. But you don't have to use that. You can easily take a piece of paper and Excel and do it there. Number 2 is you got to bridge the gap. So if there is a gap from where you are and where you want to be, there's really 3 levers that we have. So 1 is we're spending more than what we have. Number 2 is we spend exactly what we have. And number 3 is we spend less than what we have. Now, most people will say, Dre, if I had more money, then I could get it right. But if you spend more than what you have, what will happen if you make more money? Well, you're still spending more than what you have. And so you don't have the ability to put anything away. And if you don't have the ability to put anything away, then you don't have the ability to purchase your time and to withdraw from the rat race. So you have to keep playing the game until you figure out how to level up so that you can beat the level. Number 2 is you spend exactly what you have. So congratulations, you don't spend more than what you have, so you don't have debt, but you do spend all of what you have, so you don't have any money invested in your future. You don't have the ability to put your money to work. So again, you are tied to the perfect scenario, which is you get to work until you're done, and everything's going to be exactly tied to that. Now, most of us, even if we don't want to stop working, we do like the idea of having that flexibility, that choice, to where if the company makes a shift or like, I don't feel the love anymore, you can leave. Or if they hire someone new and it completely changes the culture of your team and the company, where you can say, I don't have to put up with this nonsense. I'm going to leave. That was probably one of the most important lessons that I had learned when I first quit my corporate job and I had no money coming in. And I was like, dang. So I had like some extra money, but I didn't have any money coming in. And so I had to figure things out, but I wasn't able to figure it out quick enough. And so then I had to go back to trading my time for money, and I was getting less money for more of my time. And sometimes that happens. There are lots of people who retire and then they go back working part-time and in some way, shape, or form because they just don't have the money to stay retired. And where some people, and I knew people where they were tired and they weren't well, but they had to work for a variety of reasons, whether it was their health insurance or whether they just needed the money to pay the bills and keep the lights on, where they just weren't prepared for it. They didn't have enough money to live the life exactly how they wanted. And then number 3 is you spend less than what you have. If you spend less than what you have, this is kind of the philosophy from one of my favorite books is The Richest Man in Babylon, which he's basically said, look, if you pay yourself first, if you give yourself 10% of your salary, 20% of your salary, something like that, the way I've heard it put is if you wrote out a calendar and you said, this is how much money I make in a day, and then you say, this is how much money I make in the AM, this is how much money I make in the PM. If you just pay yourself for the Monday AM, and for the whole week, you just pay yourself for the Monday AM. So you can do whatever you want with Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday's money. And you can do whatever you want with the Monday PM money. You just invest the Monday AM salary into yourself. And if you just do that, you will set yourself up far and above where most people are. And then that will work really well for you tomorrow. The strategies I'm going to give you tomorrow on long-term investing, they only work if you have the money to invest. And as I showed you yesterday, it's not as much about how much you have. It's whether you spend more than what you have, or less than what you have. If you spend less than what you have, then you have the money to invest. And the biggest key to that is whether you invest first. So I always have everyone set up automatic drafts to where the money automatically goes out the day that they get paid and it goes into their investment fund. Whether you're investing for the rainy day, whether you're investing for a future opportunity that you can capitalize on, or whether you're just investing for your financial freedom and retirement, you put a certain amount of your money on clockwork every time away, because you're going to spend what you have. All of us are going to eventually spend what we have, but what are we going to spend it on? Are we going to spend it on our freedom and our future and generational wealth and retiring? Are we going to spend it on life experiences that we want to have that are meaningful with our family? Or are we going to give in to certain pleasures in the short term that we may or may not benefit from in the long term? And so we'll talk about that a little more. And then, of course, number 3 is you got to future-proof it. I just told you, everything isn't always sunshine and rainbows, so you have to future-proof your plan. What is the likelihood of something happening, either the long-term care, disabilities, or any sort of an issue, me having to retire earlier than I expected, my spouse getting sick and I have to take care of them, my kids having issues? What is the likelihood of something happening? And do I have something to prepare for it? Normally, I would make like a box, and it'll be like a 4 chart. And part of me that's thinking about writing it there, but I'll have the 4 boxes, and then I'll have like severity and then financial impact, or the probability and the financial impact. And then I'll say if it has a low probability of happening and a low financial impact, we don't worry about it. If it has a low probability of happening and a high financial impact, more times than not, we won't worry about it. Now, if it has a high probability of happening, but a low financial impact, again, we probably don't worry about it. But everything that has a high probability of happening and a high financial impact, we 100% need to prepare for those, and you will need to do the same. And then the 4th one is you review and adjust. Life changes, right? We have more kids, the kids move on, they're doing fine. We change jobs and income, we upgrade, we downgrade. There's so much always changing in your life, so you can't do a set it and forget it plan. You want to review your plan. You want to see if it still makes sense or whether you need to update anything. If you do, then you make the updates, because the prepared person is easily going to be the person that wins this out. And so the good news is we can do this in a much simpler way. And I'm good and ready to show you. And you can see that what we used to have to do is take hours to manually input the numbers on a spreadsheet. And we had counterproductive and ineffective strategies where all the different things we were doing, nothing was talking to each other. We had investments over here, we had investments over there, we have money in our 401k, we have something in our brokerage account, we have something on Robinhood, but it's not really, nothing's talking to each other. So we can't really tell if we're on track, or we need to invest more, or we need to invest less, if we're overexposed in one aspect and underexposed in another, or if we have inaccurate information. Hard to track financial information on multiple platforms, and it's just very difficult. But that's the way we used to have to do it. And then you'll see now we have a new way that I'm going to show you. And this new way is going to be in the Wisdometrics. So what I'll do is I'm going to show you, it'll take about 10 minutes, how we would put your information in, and we'll see exactly where we're at. And then we can make the adjustments from there. You'll see you go to add new, and I'll put the link in the description, or I can email it to you, obviously, after you go to obsidianwisdom.com/retirement challenge, so that you can get the information, and I will shoot you a link so that you can set up the account. And so we'll put the information in. And I told you I'm going to use the national averages, so we're going to do that. And so we'll do this, and we'll say national average at like gmail.com, right? And so I'm going to just input your information now, and then you don't have to worry about that. The truth is it doesn't even make me do that, so there's no reason to really worry about it. All right, so I'm going to input your information now. All right, so let's do this. So it just gives us the rough age, so we'll say Dre, and he is married to Yams, right? We'll just say we're both 53 to make my life easier. You know what? It's okay. We'll make my life a little bit harder. So right, there we go. So 10-year age gap. So let's say one of us is 53 and one of us is 43. If you want to add your kids, you would come over here and you can add them. You can add your children, your grandchildren. If you have a pet and you're like, that's my favorite pet, you could add your pet in here. You definitely could. So we'll add a child, and so Alec was hanging out with me, so I'll talk to her, and then we'll just do the year. So we'll keep it nice and simple. So we'll say that she is 10, make my life easy. And so, bam, I have my 10-year-old. And then we'll just add one more kid in here. And so you can see right where I was working on where it's like child number 1, child number 2, child number 3. And we'll say that that's Erie. And then just to make my life a little bit easier, we'll just say that you are 15. Oh, I actually did that. I actually did that backwards. I meant to say that you are 5. But you know what? It's probably meant to be, so we'll just leave it that way. All right, so we have Alec at 10, Ari at 15, so we have all of our people in here. You'll see that there are 6 categories that you're going to put in to be able to get the initial output of where you're at financially, whether you're on track or need to make adjustments. So we've already done the first one, which is the family profile. You just put the people in, and then you put their age in, and then you get to move on. You can either move on by clicking, and then I'll move this up here. You can either move on by clicking next down here, or you can click on the actual tabs, and it will work either way for you. So we're going to click next. So let's do the salaries. All right, so I did do that. So the average salary of someone, or at least the median salary, it changes depending on if you have a college degree, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But we put in $50,000. So we'll say that that's going to be the average. We're going to get a 3% increase each year. And the income ends when Dre retires because, you know, that's his job. And so then we'll say Yams, she's doing about we'll say that she's doing closer to the average if you have a college degree and a little bit of experience. So we'll say that she's making like 75. All right. And then Dre's Social Security. So this number is estimated and we'll tell them the filing age. So, right. So Dre is going to take it out at 67. And then you do the month and you have 3 choices of how you want to calculate Social Security, which I do think is important for 2 things. One is a lot of people are like, you know what, Dre, when I talk to financial planners, they just ignore the idea of Social Security. And I just feel like it should be considered because I am getting it. And I would agree. So there's 3 ways you can do this. One is you just take the simple estimate. It's just going to take the national average and then you'll decide like how long you've been working in your income. And then it's going to say, okay, based on that information, this is how much you roughly can expect to get. If you go to the Social Security website and you pull your statement that tells you what you can expect to get in Social Security, you can then put the number actually in there, or you can base it on historical covered earnings. So you have 3 choices. I normally leave it as the simple estimate. And then if you're someone who's already retired and collecting it, then you would just say already receiving. And you can definitely add that in there as well. So we pull that information from the Social Security website. So we save that. So they're both estimated, so we won't worry about that. And we are good. All right, so we're good on all that. And then that's it for your income. Now, if you are someone that has a business, you can say self-employed and put that information in there. If you're someone who has a pension, you can add the pension. How much your pension is, you can expect to be able to calculate that. They give you the numbers. If you're someone who's like, I don't really get my pension, you can email me your like pension calculation. I'll read it and then I'll make a video where I'll show you how to calculate your pension. I do read. You'll be surprised at how many people's benefit packages that I read because it's almost like Warren Buffett, right? He's like, you know, investing isn't really hard when you read the financial statements. And sometimes it's that way with structuring someone's retirement where they give it big words and it's a lot of pages and a lot of excess stuff because they're trying to discourage us from reading it to know what all the benefits we have available to us. But if we're able to maintain and just read, 5-10 pages a day, it'll be worth a lot, right? Like if you devote a week to reading it or even, a few days to reading it, there's benefit to that. And so if you're very busy and it's just a lot, or if it's slightly confusing, email it to me. I will read over it. I'll make a video answering exactly what it's saying, and then we can kind of go from there because sometimes people ask me, so I didn't want to tell you that. All right, so for example, if you were to add the pension, then you could put the annual amount. Hey, what are they going to give you per year? That's the annual amount. The owner of the pension, you could say whether it's both of you or one of you. That really just is decided based on how you designed your pension. So most pensions, because it's an annuity, you have the ability to do like single life, which is just yours, which will give you the most amount of money. You can do a term period certain, which is a very fancy way of saying, if I got hit by a bus the day after I retired, but I have a period certain of 10 years, someone related to me is going to get paid the annual amount for 10 years, right? There's nothing that they could do about it. Someone's going to get that. Well, because there's a little bit of risk that's taken off of my plate and put on the insurance company's plate that's designing the pension, they're going to give me a little bit less. So maybe if I had my single life, it's $2,000 a month. But then if I choose the period certain, it's $1,500 a month where we're sharing the risk. And then the lowest amount would be if you have a joint annuity where it's based on both of you and your spouse's life or you and your child's life. And then it just depends what options they give you as far as who you can structure it with. And then that that's normally going to be the lowest amount. So maybe just get $1,000 a month because of that one. And if you have your plan designed a certain way, you could have the option to choose the single life to where you get the most amount of money, but because you structured your other finances in a way, you're able to hedge that risk yourself. So instead of paying the institution that $1,000 because you would have gotten $2,000, instead you only got $1,000 because you got it for both of your lives. What if you were able to have that $1,000 come from somewhere else, and now you can take the $2,000 and then you live a long time, your spouse lives a long time, and as a result, you have this extra $1,000 a month because you were able to put a retirement plan together that worked for you. But yeah, so you have that, annual increases if you have them, and then the cost basis, and then how much the survivor gets. Do they get 0%? Do they get half of what you get? Do they get all of what you get? Right, all of that is in there for you, and whether it's going to be taxed and different things. They also give you these little buttons where it tells you what it is. Right, so a non-covered pension will reduce your Social Security, spousal, and survival benefits, and so you do have those options as well. Also here in the income, you can add really anything. If you bought an annuity, you can put the annuity in here. Or if you get some sort of distribution from a business, or the others is like, hey, do I get a bonus? It's a sort of part of my salary. I don't get it all the time, but I do get it enough where we can average something. We can put that in there. If you have child support that you get, alimony, royalties, you wrote a book or something, really anything. Or if you already have a reverse mortgage and how that's structured, you have the ability to put in really any source of income that you have. And then we would click move on and next after that. All right, as far as savings is concerned, most of us have a 401k. And so it will say, what percentage of your salary? So for some people, we'll say, look, I save 5% of my salary and it's already started and it ends at retirement. And then I get 100% match for, let's say, the first 3%. And then I get a 50% match for the next 2%. Right. And so as a result, I invest 5% and then I end up getting 3% match, but then I only get 1% here because it's 50% on the two. You can design it that way. Actually, clicked off it before I click save, so that happened. So you get 50. So you get the 50% match on the next 2%, and then you save that. So we're done with that, and that is, I forgot to put the contribution in there. So 5%. We'll save that. And then Yams is set to 4%. So she does 4% and she gets a match of the 4%, right? She has a better deal than me, and that happens. And then your taxable income was just really any money that you put monthly away that goes to something that is taxable. So these are pre-tax instruments, which just means they're taxed when you retire. They're not taxed today. And then taxable investments would be like maybe a brokerage account or something like that. You would add that in there. You have the ability to add any additional accounts that you have. You can see that really any type of way that you have your pre-tax investments are there for you. The traditional IRA, the SEP, and the simple. You have the Roth, right? Back to a Roth. Everything is in here. 529 for your kids and in their college planning. Any other taxable accounts in your HSA. These are all in here. And then you have the ability to really add anything. So if you have a cash balance pension, and you may be like, well, Dre, ask me. I can help you with that. Deferred compensation, your profit sharing, anything that you have, we can add it in here as far as your savings is concerned. And then once you have that, you move on to next, which is your net worth. And you'll see your net worth, you just can do it one of two ways. You can either link the accounts. So you come here, just click who your bank is or write the name of the bank, and then you put your login information, and then it's going to link you to the account. It will let you know whether it has any problems linking to it. Once it's linked, you will automatically be able to just come in here and it's going to update your information for you on a regular basis, which is pretty nice. And so you don't have to worry about that, but you'll be able to log in and get everything set up. Move this so I can, right, I don't actually want to do it. So let's exit out of that. Perfect. Now, if you don't want to link any of them, or you don't really have the logins for online, you can just come in here and you can add anything. So you have a bank account balance you want to add. So we'll put the average amount in here. So the average family, they have about, we'll say like $1,000. That's in here for savings. The credit card debt, the average family has about like $50,000 in credit card debt. So you can put in $50,000. Your monthly payment, let's say you pay like $200, you probably pay more than that. Let's say you pay like $1,000 a month. Let's say you pay like $1,000 a month on a credit card, a 10% APR, save that. That's added there. You see what we're doing is we're going to be creating your net worth. This is the money you have in cash. This is the amount, the difference. So any investments that you have that are outside of your 401k, you can add those in there. So you could say, I don't know, Robinhood. You'd be like, okay, I have $10,000 in my Robinhood account, and they don't charge me anything, right? They love me, cool. And then you can choose an asset allocation that matches it. You can either do it manually yourself, or I've already have some preset ones in here. So you would just click on this customize button. You would change it to based on model portfolio, and then you would choose the portfolio. Do you have, like, which does it make most sense for you? So most people, you normally have a balanced. So we'll say that. So we have that. So now we know what our investments are making. And then we'll say this one is actually Yams's account. And we'll save that. We'll say the cards are actually joint. So we'll save that. All right, the stock plan would be anything with a company. So if your company gives you the ability to purchase stocks, then you put that information in there. If you have a loan, click on the loan, and then it will give you the options. It could be your mortgage. So we'll say that. We'll say this is my mortgage. It's a joint mortgage. So we'll say it's like $400,000. We got in there before the rates increased. So our rate is like 3.5. And we got that in 2000, and we just got it right. So 2020. And it is a 30 year. So they want it in years. My monthly payment, we'll say it's like $1,900, and I have a balance of $350,000, right? So I still have that balance. And then early payoff, no. So we don't have anything on that, and then we'll save that. So we got your mortgage in there. You can then add, and we'll add like a car payment. So we'll say we got a car loan. So we'll say Yam's car. So so she's amazing. So we'll say she has a 3%. She pays like $500 a month, has like a balance of $25,000, and we'll say that that's the amount. So you save that. Boom. She's got the car in there. Everything is currently in there. It's included in the plan. This one is Yams, so we'll change that to Yams. And then you save it. Now we need to add some of your assets. So if you have your property, we'll actually click on the property, and then you change it from rent to own. So it's your primary residence, and we'll say the current value is, I don't know, it's worth $1 million, right? We'll just say that. You pay about $6,000 on property tax, and you have like $5,000, and insurance appreciates about 3%, taxes 3%, and then that would be joint, right? So we have our home, and that's joint. And you'll see it's going to update as we include these things. Your overall net worth will continue to be updated. So if you have any life insurance, we can add that. Do you have life insurance through your work? That would be the group life. If you have term, you can add that. Any other life insurance options that you want. So we'll just say that we have an annual premium of $2,000, and this one ends in 2050. Death benefit of $1 million. So and then that ends in 2050 as well. So that's when policy ends. Just to make our life a little bit easier, right? You can choose either person. I'm going to leave it as me to make it nice and easy. Whether it's in even a life insurance trust, you could choose that. All right, so then you're good on that. All right, so we have a lot of information here. And then others is really just exactly what it sounds like. If there's anything that didn't fit in here, but you want to add it into your plan, you can. You see the life insurance options, you have tons of different options to add. But if you don't want to, you can just add them here total in the expenses. So you can say, hey, what are my pre-retirement expenses? And it says it reflects your average monthly expenses prior to retirement, and then you exclude anything that you already entered on the net worth. So if you have your mortgage or your debt or your insurance payments, do not include them here, or else you'll be double counting. So I'll say we spend about $10,000 a month, which will have us basically living roughly exactly what we're making. Taxes filing jointly, it calculates that for you. Okay. And then this is like my favorite part. This is your goals. So the stuff that you did yesterday, where you did your homework, you wrote out your goals, things that people you want to meet, places you want to go, things you want to do that are designed around the 8 things that's the beginning of happiness. You're just going to add those in here. So you get to come here, you add a goal. Did you say you wanted to take a vacation? Well, great. So we'll say family vacation. Annual amount, we'll say $2,000 for us to pull, probably a little stingy. We'll say $3,000 for us to plan that off, but I want to start it next year. This is a joint vacation, and we want to do it every 2 years. So we want to do that every 2 years. And then it increases with inflation, right? We want to have the same quality of vacation. And then you see it right here. Family vacation's been added. You all see the towels is added the college. What you would be looking for, so the college, the amount that we get, we take the national average. So this is the national average of what 1 year of college costs at a 4-year university for in-state. If you want to make changes, you know how much your place is going to cost, then you can do that. If you know your kid's going to get a bunch of scholarships and grants, you can offset it. If you know they're just going to take out student loans, you can add that in there as well. But you'll ultimately end up having to cover that in your retirement plan in some way. And so if it's all on them, you could write it right there and then save it and all on them. It also has the annual retirement long-term care cost. So we had mentioned that a little bit earlier. So we're saying, look, we're going to say the last 2 years of your retirement plan, you're going to face long-term care. And so I already told you, people 65 and older, there's about a 70% chance that you're going to have at least one long-term care issue. And it gives us the average amount. So it's about $60,000 a year. What is that? That is the in-home care national average that we're doing. Now you could say, well, I'm not going to have them come to my house. I'm going to go to an assisted living facility or a nursing home. You could change that and it will adjust the amounts for each person. And then the overall health cost, when you retire, that's what it will cost about a year. And again, those are the averages, and then your retirement age. And you can play around with that number to see what works and doesn't work for you. All right, so let's just add something in here. Let's say we're gonna pay for the kid's wedding, and that's gonna cost like $10,000. And they're not gonna get married anytime soon, so we'll say that the wedding is gonna be in like 15 years, so that'll be like 38. And that will be joint. We can add that in there. And then we could say we want to get an investment property, a vacation home or land, really anything. Gifts, if we want to do charitable giving, that is in here as well. And really anything that you want to add. You want to get a new car, you want to pay for someone's college or your own, you can add any and everything in here. Once you're done, that is it. You just click the complete button and you have the plan. Now, the cool thing is you get the actual blueprint that shows you everything that you just did in a very nice to look at way. So your net worth is $586,000. That's mostly from the mortgage, right? We know, or not from the mortgage, but from our home values. We know our home, we put $1 million. So that's basically what gives us that. It's got the kids over here. And then we have the things that are just yams and things that are just Dre. So we have the money in the account, the life insurance. We have the investments in Robinhood and the other loan. And then we have the jointly held things. Primary home, everything is nice and organized in here for you. You click on your goals tabs and it shows you. All right, well, this is the way you guys laid it out. You said, what? Your kid's going to start at college when? When they turn 18. Well, they're 15, so that's in 3 years. This is how old you'll be when the kid turns 15. And then you have this college expenses, whether you're paying it or she's paying it or everybody's paying it. But look, At 31, Alec goes to college, right? Will be 62 and 52, shows us the exact age. And then it shows while that kid is in college. And then we have our retirements, and then when we're retiring, and then you have the health expenses and things. Yeah, the kid's wedding that we're going to pay for, how old we would be when that happens. And then you have really everything. Now, the one thing I didn't see in here was the vacation, right? I didn't see our vacation in there. So I'm going to go back and click on goals. And I'm going to look for the lifestyle vacation. So the lifestyle vacation, see, it says the goal starts in 2024 and then ends in 2023. Well, that's why we don't have the vacation. So we're going to change this to the end of plan. We're going to go, we'll say the end of both. And now it's going to show in there. So that's why that wasn't there. All right, so we got everything in here. We'll go to goals. There we go. Now we see the vacation. So the vacation that's happening every 3 years. Vacation every 3 years. And then even when we're retired, everybody's gone, we still have our vacations. We're still enjoying ourselves. The long-term care problem that we said on the last couple years of the plan. And then the very last vacation. Shout out to anyone who's 101 years old. So 2070. It's all laid out there for you. And then we show, as you see here, income, savings, and expenses. This is the money that we make. Estimated Social Security income. The pension, we didn't put anything in there. Your savings comes from the retirement. We see the amounts that we're saving. And then the expenses would be about $10,000 a month. That's what we said. What you would then do is you would come to this dashboard screen. When you click the dashboard, this is sort of like a one-page retirement plan. It has all the information that you have. It tells you what your federal tax rate will roughly be. It tells you what your net worth is, your bank account, so you have your balance sheet. This is where all the money comes and goes. And then you'll see over here you have the probability of success. Is that 0%? It says based on the information that we put in, we will run out of money. And you can see it shows it. We'll run out of money at around 89 years old, right? So we have the money, we've been building it up, we've been investing it, and then around 89 years old, we run out of money. So we would need to make adjustments to the plan, and we'll go over that. And that's very tactical, so we'll go over that offline. But it shows your investments, where those are at, the taxable allocations. You can come up here and add anything that you want inside, so you can see what your savings rate is, how much of the money is that you're saving. Well, your saving rate is 8%. About 8% of your salary is what y'all are investing. If you want to look at your investment concentration, you can look at that. Insurance, everything is here. And then you can look at the snapshots where we're at. You can look at the balance sheet, assets, liability, right? Net worth, everything's there. Liquidity, how much money do we end up having? Liquidity, this is going to be your emergency fund. How much cash do you have? It says that you'd want to have about 3 to 6 months of your money set aside. Well, that's about $40,000. And what do you have? Well, you have $2,000. So that means you have a shortfall of $38,000. Everything's right there for you to be able to make the adjustments. The budget, we didn't link anything, so there would be nothing there. And then the debt, it shows it. We would be able to pay off all of the debt with the current plans that we have by 2045. Tells you that if you make no adjustments whatsoever. And it shows you what the percentages are and the things that we're paying. And then it calculates it out for you. We didn't put any student loans in for us personally, but your kids' ones would be there. The investments, the retirement. So why are we at a 0% confidence? We already saw it. It's because we run out of money. We've been investing the money, we've been growing the money, and then we run out of money. Right? And so we have to put a plan together that makes adjustments to that. And then I'll show you inside of the Facebook group how to be able to do that. But you can see your cash flows, and it shows you where the money is coming and going. And you can see the cash coming in, you can see the expenses going out, and it just kind of keeps flowing for you. But I won't keep you any longer, right? We're already at an hour, and that was about all that I wanted to be able to take your time for the challenge today. But that's what we're going to do today. We're going to create the retirement plan so that you're able to see what your success rate is, and then you'll make the adjustments based off of that. This is you see how much you're investing, what your net worth is, and the direction you're going. Maybe you'll decide you want to live a little longer, or maybe you decide, maybe you decide that you want to continue working a few more years, and maybe that will help you. Maybe you're comfortable with that. You're like, look, I think 89 is fine to run out of money. I think I'm going to be okay. Now, some of you may say, well, I just want to make sure I don't ever run out of money, because what if I do live longer? What if something does change? These are all changes that you want to make. Now, granted, we did take a little bit longer to go through it, but you see that if I was just putting in the information in each column, and you have it already available, you can churn this out easily in 10 minutes. You can have the plan together, it gives you the numbers, and you can go from there. And then we would adjust it from there. And I'll look at your plans, and then you can say, hey, Dre, there's nothing that I can do to make this work. And then I'll show you ways to do that. I'll put that video inside of the Facebook group. Again, if you are not actively in the challenge, I'm glad you're watching the videos, but feel free to go to obsidianwisdom.com/retirement challenge, log in, join the challenge, get your free 30-day trial of the Wisdom Metrics. And then at the end of the day, you make the plan, you make the adjustments, and then you can come over here and download it. So you just come to, I think you come to profile, where is it? Yeah, so you click on the button, you click on reports, and then you can download your plan. And then you don't even have to worry about it. And then you cancel it. It's not like you give any of your information to be able to get the account. You just get the account. And if you decide you want to keep it, then you put in the billing information. But if you don't decide that you like it, you don't have to worry about it. You didn't have to give any billing information. But I'll see you tomorrow where we'll go over long-term investing, which will be great and exciting. If you have any questions, I'll look for them inside of the Facebook group, and then we'll do this again tomorrow. Continue blessings.